Welcome to Missed Opportunities for Good, the podcast where we open up the space to have conversations about trends and campaigns at the intersection of marketing, advertising, and impact.
Hi, I'm Alana Ficalora.
Hey, I'm Steph Belsky.
We're social impact strategists, colleagues, and friends who are on a mission to revolutionize the industry we love.
Today, there's a lot of virtue signaling, greenwashing, cause washing, or companies saying nothing out of fear of getting it wrong.
Whether it's a moment or a movement, it still has to be real. It has to be authentic and aligned with the brand, not just performative. It's about the action being taken that goes along with the messaging.
So we're here to highlight who's doing it well, what could be better, and how companies can stop leaving money and the potential for real social change on the table.
Our guest today on Creative Conversations is Michelle O'Grady.
Yay!
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, to kick us off, can you please tell us why you do what you do without literally telling us what you do? What's your why?
Oh man, that's a hard. I mean, I have a lot of whys. I think at this age or this tenure in my career, but my original why was I grew up in a very community focused family. I always talk about this story with my great grandmother who would literally lend money from her dining room table to people who couldn't get bank loans to start businesses or buy houses. And so I think I didn't understand what that meant when I was a young kid, but now reflecting back, it was like, oh, that's something that's genetically ingrained into my system. How do we take what we have and distribute it back as much as possible? Obviously, making sure that everybody's comfortable and sustainable, but how do you spread that comfort and how do you make sure that you're uplifting your community as much as possible? So I think I always use her and those moments as like drivers of just like, this is why I do what I do, or this is why I'm so invested in making sure that all people are okay.
That's beautiful.
I love that. All right, well, now we're actually going to share what it is that you do. Michelle O'Grady is a communication strategist and academic who specializes in cross-cultural marketing. She founded Team Friday, woohoo, a marketing strategy firm that helps philanthropy, nonprofits, government, and businesses engage with communities and shift narratives through data-driven, award-winning campaigns. Michelle holds a degree in marketing and a master's in media psychology, and she's going for her doctorate as well. Dr. O'Grady, and brings expertise from diverse fields to solve complex communication challenges. We are so excited you're here, Michelle. And Michelle and I go way back. And so this feels like a fun reunion. And she and Alana had met too. So this is awesome. And we are so excited to have you on the pod. So thanks for being here, Michelle.
Oh my God, thank you so much. It does feel like a reunion. It's always fun. It's always fun to be in like-minded company,
Absolutely.
of course.
Yes. Well, now let's get to know you a little bit better, shall we?
Yes, please. So you sort of alluded to this in your why, unsurprisingly, but is there another story of what first drew you to doing impact work?
Yeah, I started my career in fashion and fashion marketing and worked there for 10 years. And that is all about creating illusions of grandeur. So, in so many ways. And really the opposite of what we do now, which is try to commit as much marketing dollars to creating more belonging in the world. It's very the opposite of that. I think as I tried to go more into things that I thought were more glamorous or like, things that I thought were more exciting because they just felt bigger and more, more seen and more obvious and more visible. The more I realized that the work actually happens like very singularity and, change happens incrementally. And so I left that and then started, I kept trying to leave, I think, my community roots behind. But then I really thought about it as like, well, how am I actually using what I know and what I do and how I thought and my orientation to work and my orientation to product? Like, how am I doing that to serve in service of others? And not just in service of others, but in service of myself. It feels none of it ever felt authentic to do the other ways. And so the minute I stepped more into impact and thinking about my impact on the field or my impact as a potential owner or leader or whatever title we want to give it. It felt more real, and it felt more natural to just sit in it and think about how I was going to create more belonging through marketing, use that as a vehicle or as a tool to have better conversations in the world between whether it's brands or products or whatever, but also invite more communities in. I started to realize that things don't happen in vacuums and like one person. And I had a fashion mogul one time tell me on a trade show floor, money is in the masses. And I always hold that to be true. Money is in the masses, but how do you distribute the money to the masses? How do you invite everybody into that conversation? And so I think that's part of my why, is just really reframing everything that I've learned and flipping it upside down and thinking, how do we make this more inclusive? How do we make this better? How do we tell a better story? How do we bring more people in? Because the money is in the masses. If you bring more people in, they will feel more beholden to a brand or to an experience. And that helps drive that conversation. And you could do that through exclusion, or you could do that with inclusion. You know, they're two different methods. And so I just chose the inclusionary one as much as possible.
What a concept.
I know. Interesting, right?
It's crazy. If we want
crazy,
why not bring all people in if you want to reach the masses?
Why not?
Why not? I love that you're flipping the script on all of that.
Yeah.
And
going back to your roots too, of, you know, I can just see your great grandmother distributing the funds to the masses, and you're literally doing exactly what she did.
Yeah, I can still visualize her receipt book. She had a receipt book where she would like write down, give people their receipt back so they knew when they paid her back. Like,
she was Kiva before Kiva existed.
She was Kiva before Kiva existed. Totally.
Awesome.
I love it.
I imagine this might have a tie to inclusion, but maybe not. What issue area are you most passionate about?
Oh man, there
also could be more than one.
There's so many.
I'm terrible at the one, so you're allowed to have more than one.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think women in business is always going to be something that I think about quite honestly, you know, just because I've worked in such big corporate environments. I was just recalling with my husband and some friends about my reconnection to sports over the last 10 years. I used to watch Sports Center because I needed to know if my boss was going to be in a good mood or a bad mood on Monday morning. I used to have to really organize myself around trades. I hate football. I hate American football. I don't get it. I don't think it's fun to watch, but I knew everything about it because that's how you would get on projects in certain ways and in certain centers. And that's how you would be able to have conversations with colleagues or in boardrooms or, you know, all of that stuff. And so I'm a really big baseball girly. I love baseball. I grew up playing it. I grew up watching it. It's definitely a part of my family DNA, but I didn't know that I could like sports for me, like the competitiveness of it, like other sports besides baseball. And so it's been fun to reconnect and just reflect about like, why did I do that and how I'm flipping it to want to love it for myself again. And not just because I wanted to be on a project or I wanted to be able to connect or I wanted to not be left out of a conversation, because I don't think that happens as much now, but it definitely was of the era in which I was starting my career. And so I think a lot about women in business. I think a lot about women in sports. I think a lot about just women in general and their inclusion in the world and the safety of women to be thought leaders and to be out front and to lead movements and all of that. And then I think, you know, multiculturally, I'm mixed. I'm Mexican and Irish. And so I think the duality of space that we have to hold, I think a lot about that. This is the fastest demographic growing in America. It's part of my dissertation research. Mixed race kids are the fastest growing demographic, and we don't have language to have them belong or included, and we're still very siloed into monoracial culture or monoethnic culture. And so what is that going to look like in 10 years, 20 years? I think a lot about that and what my role is as somebody who's sat in multiple spaces in multiple ways, and what I can do to kind of ease that burden of identity development for kids. And so, I just think about, those are just small things I'm thinking about on a daily basis.
Oh my God. Saving the world. Literally.
Just small.
I don't know about that, but just trying to make it less painful is my goal.
That feels like saving the world to me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. True story.
Just make it suck just a little bit less.
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
little less, make it less awkward for those
Yeah.
kids growing up. We all had an awkward phase. I don't care who says they didn't. They
Yeah.
absolutely did. You had
Entirely.
to, so how do we make it less awkward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you're talking about in terms of the duality of identity. Quick high school story. My high school had a race and gender units in 11th grade. We were having critical race theory before that was talked about everywhere. The first day of the race unit, I don't think this is legal to do now, but they had chairs around the outside of the room. And they were like, if you're white, stand on the chairs. If you're Asian, stand in front of the chairs. If you're Hispanic, sit over here. If you're Black, sit over here. And people were like, but what if I'm mixed? And they're like, you have to pick one. And then everyone got to a place and no one was comfortable where they were. And then it started the conversation of how does this make you feel? And obviously nobody felt good where they were, but it was a very interesting conversation. And then I found out later why that exercise is actually a really horrible thing to do. But at the time we didn't know because the teachers told us to do it. Still, nothing's changed since then, truly. Everything you do, you're meant to identify yourself. And so how do you handle that when it is more than one? Especially more than two.
Yeah.
It's not just biracial. People are mixed race in general. There's can be multiples in that mix. So it's, yeah, that is a really interesting thing to dive into.
Yeah, my goddaughter and her cousins, two of my best friends and friends' family. My goddaughter is Mexican, Salvadorian, and Korean, and her cousins are Black, Korean, and Salvadorian. So it's just like how are they going to be able to navigate the world and be completely seen? I always say whole person seen, whole person, I talk about that concept a lot, but yeah, how do we make a world where they don't have to decide? Like, you don't have to choose in that exercise. You could just have your own category if you need to,
And aren't choosing depending on who you're with either, trying to play up one side versus another
or who you feel more comfortable or exactly like who you present more to or how do people perceive you versus how you perceive yourself,
how you have to code switch and what that
100%.
These kids. Aside from this incredible doctorate program that you're doing, and this dissertation sounds unbelievable and so necessary right now. I mean, forever, but also especially right now. What's an impactful project you've worked on that you're super proud of?
Yeah, recently we've worked on a number of really cool campaigns. We did one for youth suicide prevention, and we do a lot of research and a lot of ground truthing before we start campaigns. It's part of the ethos and the framework that my team goes through. We don't just rely on academic studies or statistics or anything like that. We want to know, is this still factual even 5 years later, 2 years later? And so what I was most moved by was how vulnerable kids were in a lot of our focus groups, and just talking about how they've had to comfort other friends or be support systems for other friends, and realizing how much kids hold in these days. I'm of the era of before the internet and with the internet, I remember what that was like. And these kids have only known themselves to be online. And so just a reminder of what we're putting online is reflected in all of their kind of work. And so just being able to participate and contribute to that body of work for youth suicide prevention is, I think, just really timely. And when we're talking about mental health crisis, I think we were talking about that in the pre-show about kids and especially boys and navigating. Just, it's already awkward to navigate the world, and just having to do that with better resources. And they really informed the campaign. They informed a lot of the messaging. And I think just being able to interpret that for them and show them how a campaign happens and what their involvement looks like. And then to be able to go back to them and be like, okay, we're at the final steps. Do you like this creative? Do you like these images? Do you like this messaging? And being so excited to see their involvement going through that moment. I think that that'll always stay really close to my heart, of just people want to participate and impact, on so many levels. And we just have to give them the space to do that and to be able to participate, to be a part of the masses that get to be introduced into those conversations. They inform so much, and then being able to just we're just messengers. We're just packaging it up the way, we're the tactical people. We know how to package it. We know how to put it in a PSA. We know how to put it on a billboard, put it in copy, but to have all of their kind of sentiments reflected was really cool.
That's so powerful.
That's really special.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love that. I worked, by no means a similar campaign because it was not, youth suicide prevention, which is so incredible. But just, Alana and I talk about this a lot about how communities that you're trying to reach really need to be the ones telling the story in order for it to be the most
Hmm.
impactful and the most effective.
Mhm.
And I love that this is just a direct response of that. I worked on a campaign for the Heart Project. We were rebranding it to Artworks LA. And and I remember, I was like, I just want a campaign where we talk to kids, where we talk to the students themselves and say, you know, why does art work for you? Art works for me because. And it was so simple and so powerful. And then again, to see those words and that sentiment being reflected back in the campaign, we're like, whoa, wait a second, you actually listened to me. And that's the greatest gift that you can give any of these kids is to say, not only did we hear you, but you made this happen. So
Hmm.
that empowering of these kids is really, really good stuff, Michelle. Well done. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. And good job to you. It takes all of us to kind of involve, like you said, like I think that's like a part of the ethos of Team Friday, as from our core, is that we almost never do a campaign unless we can talk to the community directly that we're trying to work with, because it doesn't, we approach culture in a multifaceted way, in that culture is such a signaled word, it's just a charged word
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now, but we think of culture as like, who are you in community with, what's the ethnic demographic there, what's the socioeconomics
Yeah.
graphic, what's transit look like, how do you move through the
Yeah.
city. We think of campaigns very, very localized on that granular
Yeah.
level, so that they feel, and then talk to those people directly, so then they get reflected. Oftentimes we use community members as subjects for the media,
Yeah.
so we'll have them in the videos, or
Yeah.
we'll bring them into a photo shoot, and so it's so fun to see them kind of like post with their family. We've seen photos of families underneath a billboard with somebody that's
That's
gotten
so
shot, and then they're like,
sweet.
oh my god, we're so excited. And it's funny, it's like that Carrie Bradshaw moment when she sees herself on the bus, and then she has that little, they
Yeah.
have like a champagne moment. It's like it really happens. And so it's been really fun to work with our team, and for our team to kind of like have that baked in as a core tenet
Mhm.
of what we do, is like we almost never do a campaign. And so it takes a lot longer to work with us, I think, to get campaigns off the ground, but
Worth it.
they're more,
Mhm.
yeah, they're more worth it, and they end up being very successful, right? Because people are bought in,
Yeah.
right? They know that it's coming, they know, and they can go to their other community members and say, oh, I
You're
saw
a
you,
trust
I trust
messenger.
that
Yeah.
Yes,
message.
absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Trusted messengers on multiple levels,
Hmm.
right? Whether you're called that or whether you're just seen as that, we try to give as many visible cues to show you that this is trusted,
Yeah.
and to trust that, and to kind of like get
Yeah.
involved, and being involved is like a safe
Yeah.
environment for
It's
you.
not based on generic assumptions. It's actually real community
No,
involvement.
yeah.
And
I
so it
mean,
goes that much further
Mhm.
to the people that you're trying to reach
totally,
because they actually
totally.
they can connect with the message that you're sending,
Yes.
Right,
not instead of seeing
right.
through it. Switching gears a little bit, what's one of the biggest challenges you're facing right now?
I'm laughing because I feel like everything is a challenge right now.
Oh, the world is a
I was like,
challenge. Waking up is a
the
challenge.
world is a
Yes.
challenge. I mean, not to be Debbie Downer about it. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about. Yeah, I think one of the challenges is that we get, because we tend to sit in the culture space, so we get pigeoned into multicultural. Not that I hate to be with friends at all, but it doesn't encapsulate exactly what we do.
Hmm.
And so that's been a challenge. And I think just
Yeah.
given, I mean, we're a part of the fight and the resistance to like everything that's kind of going against, trying to go against anything that's culture related, inclusion related. We're in this fight with everybody, but I think it doesn't speak to the totality of what we
Yeah.
do, and so that's always been challenging. I think when you work with us, you kind of see the difference, but we're in an interesting space alongside everybody else who's working in impact and inclusion
Yeah.
work around what does this mean, and how do we expanding, like inclusion has always been about expansive. It's really been the outside voices that have kind of said what inclusion is, when
Yeah.
people who work in inclusion work know that it's
Right.
about it's about everybody. It's about seeing everybody represented. So I think we're alongside everybody else trying to navigate that kind of messaging windstorm that keeps coming,
Yeah.
and just trying to make sure that we stay true and honest, and yeah, trying to make sure that we sit in this work and we're not deterred by whatever is happening on the outside, to know that the money is in the masses and the masses are inclusive, and keep shouting that from the rooftops as much, as much as possible, and keep making sure that this is what we believe. This is not something that we're going to kind of falter under, just given where the political climate might be
Yes.
Yeah.
going, or is, or where, or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
all of the
Yeah.
things.
I love it. And thank you, because we need more Michelle O'Grady caballeros in this world.
I mean, like I said, just on this call, you guys are both, certainly in that space. And we have a lot of friends who are in this space, and we're all trying to navigate it together, which I think is also really beautiful. It's like no one
Yeah.
has all the answers right now, and everybody's trying to figure out how they continue to do good work,
Yeah.
regardless of what's happening on the outside.
Absolutely.
And also tell clients that it's still okay to
Yeah.
do good work. I think that's the part that's been something that I mean, everybody's been monitoring for a long
Yeah.
time, but we don't have to denounce everything because one group says, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? There's ways to bring people in. And I certainly think that there's a moment right now, especially as we're thinking about belonging in marketing. It's like, how do we bring those people in so that they understand that they have a place, and everybody has a
Yes.
place, and it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
as siloed as they want to make it.
Well, and in thinking about the work that you're doing, right? Like you're showing inclusivity, you're showing belonging. You don't need to say it. You are showing
100%.
it.
Yeah.
You're
And
living
that's
it. And yeah.
more
Yeah.
important than anything. So, yeah, well
Yeah.
done. Our next question, because I don't really know how to transition us at this moment, but if you had a magic lamp, what would your ideal project or collaboration be?
Oh man. That's a good question. I don't know that I have an ideal necessarily. I have a lot of projects that I want to test, like start to
Mhm.
pilot, which is really around, Team Friday is venturing, I think, just by the necessity of me being an extension of the company, and where my study and research is going is like in the weave of
Mhm.
culture. We're really interested in looking at what it means to unsilo some of the cultural marketing that happens in the
Yeah.
world.
Yes.
So we're really interested in piloting some stuff like that, and have talked to a number of brands and institutions to start doing that work. We don't live in silos, so I never understood why we market in
Yep.
silos. It's so interesting. Marketing has always been about fragmentation, and to an extent that works, but we don't live in fragmented communities. How do we show that it can be fragmented with purpose, or how do we show that we can unfragment and it'll still work? So we're really interested in piloting some of those projects this year, or this coming year, and really looking at the, like, kind of like to the extent that you don't have to choose,
Mm.
right? You could feel like culture is also a felt sense, like line dancing is culture,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like music places are culture. So how do you market in those, and how do you reclaim that name
Mhm.
to expand what it
Yep.
means? And so really interested in doing that more.
Mm.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like there's finally more conversations happening around that now as well, which maybe is only because we're also in this space and it's also something we think about. But I feel like I'm
Sure.
finally starting to see these little bits of these conversations starting to happen. And my vision
Yeah, and I
sucks, so I
think
can't
like
tell you the book I'm reading right now that's kind of about this. I literally just read like 2 books on culture and like the reclaiming of the word and this exact conversation. And it's fascinating because there is so much opportunity there to look at how we approach this.
Yeah, and I think like it's so funny because there's like oh my God, it's like Culture Code, I think is the name of the book. They talk about the way that they approach culture is really around product, right? Like
Mhm.
having a square box for a circular pizza, what signals that sends on a psychological level. And so I think, especially in the space of political conversations, we're talking about culture as a very singular thing when culture is all
Yeah.
encompassing. And so how do we expand marketing and our work to really reflect the all-encompassing way that we think about it, and not just be siloed because somebody says this is what it
Right.
is, that we know that it's not, right? So how do we be more, I think, declarative in that conversation, and then have it reflected in the work? This unsiloing is something that we've been thinking about a lot, and we've done, and we've been able to pilot it. We're in Los Angeles with 11 million people, and we translate things into like 13 languages.
Yes.
So we're already doing it. It's like, how do we ripple effect that a little bit more so that you can see that everywhere. I'm also just personally interested in the psychology of cities and how they're transforming. I always use Kansas City as an example. Garmin's international headquarters will be in Kansas City, which feels really like, I was like, what is happening? My husband's sister lives in Kansas City, so we go there, and I'm like, the city changes every time I come here, and it's like once a year, and so just interested in how that reverberates in marketing as well, how that's going to translate into different communities, and how we're so I think there's marketing hits, and I think creative hits on so many different levels, and it's on us to pay attention to all those different levels and figure out where there's points of interjection where we can start to move that needle as much as possible.
Oh, so interesting. I'm excited to see these pilots come out. You'll have to keep us updated.
Me too.
Since you've gone on a journey to get out of the chasing the biggest, dreamiest project, in air quotes, truly, because it turns out it's not all it's cracked up to be, right, to being more purpose-driven in the work that you are doing, what's one piece of advice that you would give someone who's looking to incorporate more social impact, more positive, purpose-driven impact into either their brand or the marketing work that they're doing, whether they're an individual working in an agency or they own their own company? Where could people start, or what's something you would recommend?
Yeah, start where you are is always the thing that I would recommend. You just have to make sure that it's authentic, and you have to make sure that you give it time to breathe. I always talk about this with clients. You want to make a pivot, and you think that the results that you had for the same messaging stance you've had for 15 years is going to be the thing, and then you change in a month and then you don't see the results. It's like, yeah, because you have 15 years of narrative to undo, or you have 15 years of narrative that is being challenged. It takes time. I think if it's authentic to you, it'll feel more authentic to the consumer and to the audience, and then they'll be able to realize it sooner. It's when it doesn't feel authentic that people move with trepidation. And moving with trepidation causes a lot of time for things to collapse. And so whatever it is, however big of a step it is, make it authentic and make sure that it's authentic, so it's going to last, right? It's not something that you're moving to have the dreamiest PR stunt possible. It's a thing that you actually believe is necessary, and you believe it so much that if you don't do it, it'll be bad, right? For me, it was really energetic of like, if I actually don't lean into this, it's actually going to ruin me internally, right? That's how authentic it felt. And so I think it has to feel like that. It has to feel urgent, and it has to feel authentic, and it has to feel real for people to move with you. And people will move with you if it is authentic, and you might lose some people, but you'll gain some people. It's the right boundaries to have.
I love that. And it's such a great transition into the campaign you brought, because it's totally on theme. I was like,
I didn't plan
I
that.
know, but it's so, but it's, again, it all makes sense because it is so true. And it is also the lens of which you then look through the world and the other work that's out in the world, right? So it all makes sense.
Well, before we jump into the campaign that you've brought, we'll keep our listeners in suspense for just a little bit longer. Let's quickly review our criteria, not just for you, Michelle, but for our listeners. So the first thing we always look at is alignment.
Next is partnerships.
Call to action and transparency.
Engagement.
Lastly, optimization and amplification.
So with that, Michelle, if you can please tell us about this campaign that you brought us today, that it is doing it well or not. And if you can give us a quick summary the creative, the execution, kind of what's going on. And then we'll obviously include a link as well in the show notes so people can go look at the actual campaign on their own time as well.
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell whether it's being done well or not because this announcement is relatively new. I would say
Hot off the
like two
presses.
Yeah.
weeks, I
Yep.
think.
Freshy fresh.
Hot off the press, freshy fresh. You know, I still love fashion and
Yes.
love the industry, and I think there's so much room to build in this industry, and so I've always kept tabs on it. And so yeah, I was actually very surprised to read the announcement about Victoria's Secret and their kind of pivot back into, for lack of better words, the sexy branding and move away from this pivot that they did in 2021, 2022 with a more diverse collection and more diverse bodies and kind of like acknowledging this kind of tenuous past that they've had with male, I think with the female, I think gaze and the male gaze and everything that came from it. So just super interested to see, yeah, how we break this down in criteria mode. But yeah, I was just like, oh my God, this is so interesting because they just made their repivot in 2021, 2022. And so it hasn't even really been that long of a conversation considering the tenure that we've known Victoria's Secret to have. Yeah, interesting. Interesting times ahead, but
Yeah.
neither here nor bad, neither good nor bad. I don't know. Yeah, just
Yeah.
reflecting on
But
it.
yes, 100%. I mean, it's interesting to see, to your point, how the market has changed for lingerie in general over the last 5-10 years. There's obviously more competition coming up from different avenues and stuff.
100%.
And so it's split people. I mean, you know, we grew up, Victoria's Secret was the jam, even though it probably was not the most appropriate choice, but that was normalized.
Definitely.
And then in the post Me Too world, everyone's like, this is terrible. Why are we putting these posters up in malls? And what is happening? To now them drop that, but then say that their numbers are down and then leaning hard in the other direction, but keeping pieces, it sounds like, right? They're like trying to keep some of their
Like, yeah, so
inclusivity and those elements. And the fashion show is back. So what does the fashion show look like?
Right.
Who are those models today?
Which is, I
like,
think
how
it's
does that
funny.
work?
Yeah, because they use the fashion show viewership as a marker for whether the brand pivot was successful, which I think is really interesting on a psychological level because I just don't think they understand how media works right now. Like nothing live
Yeah.
besides sports is really live anymore and people are not consuming media that way, and so to use that as the pinnacle kind of conversation, also there's so much content to choose from. I love fashion shows. I would not tune in to a Victoria's Secret like not just, I mean, that's not to say that no one will, but that's not a marker of whether I like lingerie or would
No,
buy the
totally.
brand. So I think even using that or stating that as a claim and then to use to say that diverse bodies was kind of the reason why people weren't tuning in, I think is a kind of a false narrative around how media works today. And so I think the more authentic thing to say would be, we want to go back and we're going back and just own that rather than to use that as kind of the marker for the pivot back into the aspirational fantasy conversation.
Well, and Michelle, going back to something you said, is this the client that did not let it breathe enough, that did not let their pivot kind of sink in and own it and then say, no, they saw an 8% drop in sales and they were like, well, it clearly didn't work.
Right. And I think an 8% drop in sales is also due to a lot of competitors in the market, right? You have Skims, you have a new lingerie company that I keep getting ad for called Hoo Ha. You just have more conversations on lingerie and women and more than ever before. I feel like Victoria's Secret was the only thing that we talked about besides department stores when we were growing up. It was the game, right? There was nothing else. And the game has certainly shifted. And I think the mindset of people have certainly shifted versus being aspirational or being utilitarian. What does that look like? And so I think to that point, I personally don't think that they let it breathe enough. I think also they didn't use enough regular people. I
Yeah.
think when they launched the campaign, when they launched the pivot, it was really beautiful to see, Megan Rapinoe and all these other actors and inclusive bodies and inclusive, I guess, like images of womanhood and who women are and that claim. But I don't know that I would look up to them. It goes back to that trusted messenger. It's like who is in
Yeah.
your, I don't think created a wide enough net of trusted messengers to hold that message.
Yeah.
Somebody that I think did it really well is Dove.
Yeah.
I think in
Yeah.
comparison, Dove's commitment to body
Yeah.
diversity, its commitment to inclusion, commitment to all of those things, it really set, and they use regular
Right.
people, and even in their
Yeah.
commercials it seems like regular
Yeah.
people. And so you have this sense of, oh, I'm a regular person, I can buy into that. Whereas I think when brands only use celebrity faces, and I think on a media psychology level, celebrity endorsements have pivoted so much with the
Yep.
conversation around class, when the conversation around
Yep.
authenticity. I mean, there's the whole Beyonce hubbub right now in the ethers. I think people are looking at celebrity kind of in campaigns and saying, do I really connect
Right.
with that person? Does that feel authentic to them? Do I really think that they're wearing Victoria's Secret? I don't know. If there's a question mark in
Yep.
there, that then
It's already
then the
disconnect. Yeah.
consumer has that much,
Yeah.
yeah, that much room to disconnect from it altogether. And so I think there is that, I think, bigger conversation to be had around, like, did it give it enough time? Did you use enough brand messengers that actually connected with the consumer to do
Yeah.
this? And also maybe you just feel like you want to go back. And I would totally appreciate that authentic conversation rather than what feels like
Yeah.
convoluted, I think, like excuses as to why the pivot back.
Well, and of course they had to do something once the Epstein, Wexner, everything came out, but also
I mean, that too,
right,
and look at where yeah,
right,
like
right, and then there's
it's just, you did it, and then now you're like, yeah, well, now we're just gonna go back. It's
right,
like, I don't know. It just feels inauthentic to them too. And
yeah,
so I wonder how long this will last as well, because it doesn't feel authentic. It feels authentic to go back, but like, who's tuning into that? And do they really
Who's
understand?
their
I think
audience for that?
even
Yeah.
like, yeah, Gen Z is not really their comfort level, their grasp on comfort is like next level. In all ways, in the workplace, in school, in what they dress and how they dress. So I just wonder how they're going to capture new audiences. Because I think also, I was talking to some girlfriends about this. So this isn't academically researched, but we were like, oh my God, the body harm of conversation that happened when we were teenagers around this brand is still so fresh and vigilant that I don't know if they've given much thought to how to persuade consumers in their 30s and 40s that remember what this brand represented and how aspirational it was and how it felt. And aspiration is a great thing to have in a brand. You want customers to feel like they can be a part of something. But I mean, are we all going to be Victoria's Secret model? I don't know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I don't know how many people actually ended up that way. So
Or do we even
I
want to
think they
be?
just didn't.
right, right,
That's, that the great question, Alana. Like, no, I have never aspired. So I think those conversations are marketing conversations that I don't know if they asked those questions and they came to their own determination. They probably have a lot of data on this and I'm just
Yeah.
not aware of it. But yeah, I just thought this pivot back was just so interesting and so interestingly timed,
yeah,
considering the history from the original pivot too.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I guess something else. I mean, obviously we're kind of jumping around here, but in thinking about Dove and who they are and their essence and all that, they have created some incredible partnerships in order to back up the data that they have and the self-esteem project and so what a missed opportunity for Victoria's Secret to not say, oh, we want to partner with a domestic violence organization, because that wouldn't feel authentic either, right? But who could have been a nonprofit partner that could have helped legitimize this pivot a little bit more, or a cause that they could stand for in order to back some of this up, because it does not feel authentic. And maybe that would feel more performative, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, I also think the performance is what you lead with, right?
Correct.
If you lead with your partnership, then that feels performative, right? But if the partnership is embedded into other aspects of the visibility of the
Mm-hmm.
campaign, then it feels more like it's an actual partnership, right? People want to believe that they're actual
Yeah.
partners. I always think of where do we have the most, I think, hard time seeing women, visualizing women in those spaces, right? Like STEM is still continued to be a hard time where we see femininity being a plus in those spaces as well as business. We're still battling the glass ceilings of the world. And so I wonder if there's partnerships that actually lend to empowering women that
Mm-hmm.
could have helped carry that message along, and empowering women in spaces that aren't as visible, I think having women athletes as a part of the campaign, but where was the partnership on women's
Right.
sports or having those conversations? So I think there was like a part of women's empowerment in those conversations that got kind of lost as a part of partnership opportunities. And I don't mean this in like, oh, that would have saved it, but it would have given it more, I think, authentic or real voices to lend to the actual positioning of the
Yeah.
rebrand and just kind of owning the authenticity of it in a different way. Like imagine women in STEM being seen for a lot of different things and not just, not and that femininity that could happen, or women race car drivers. There's so many spaces where women have to play in men's
Yeah.
spaces where they could have shown that it's an empowering process to be the Victoria's Secret feminine kind of consumer, and not just figuratively, but realistically.
Yeah. Even thinking, I mean, this would be extreme, but who is the CMO of Victoria's Secret, like putting herself out there as a strong woman in business and saying, here you
Percent.
go, I'm wearing Victoria's
Yeah.
Secret. I'm not necessarily the face of the brand, but kind of. Like, this is the messaging I'm putting
Yeah,
out,
a
and I'm
hundred
standing
percent.
behind it.
Or a campaign that says like you just said, Steph, like I am Victoria's Secret. It's having so many
Yeah.
faces be that
Yeah.
campaign, right? That would have
I
been
know.
huge. Here's an astronaut. Here's
Right.
a captain on a boat. Here's like there's so many ways to kind of show that empowering kind of, and the thing that I think women, you know, subconsciously think about is we think about undergarments quite often, right? How comfortable they are, what they do, utilitarian. We have to wear a dress, and we have to, because we change so much of our outfits. We have to
Yes.
live in so many different spaces, like, oh, I have to wear an evening gown. Do I have to wear something? So I think there's so many ways that they could have kind of showed the multifaceted that women have to hold, and how Victoria's Secret could have been multifaceted with
Yeah.
them. And instead of leaning on just the aspirational part of it, it's like, what is the everyday life? And how is everyday life also an aspirational part of,
Hell yeah.
of just like living in this
Yeah.
world as a woman?
Well, and to your point on that and what we need to wear underneath all these different looks, if you will, depending on what you're showing up as, right? Is you almost wouldn't even have to show the lingerie if you were going back with their previous version. If you literally
A
just
hundred
showed
percent.
women,
Yeah.
but again, it goes back to who was their audience. Because I was
Mhm.
visualizing all these people lingerie. I was like, still no one needs that. That's not solving the problem either to some extent, right? It's like when you have that high powered woman in a boardroom leading this room and she's comfortable because she is wearing Victoria's Secret under there and
Yeah.
she feels sexy, but you don't see it. You don't even have to know it's there. You could play on a whole
Mhm.
other side of it without even having to show the thing. I don't know. I think there's
Yeah, really showcasing the secret part
yeah,
of it,
Yeah.
totally.
right?
Lean into that because that's
Yeah.
all I'm looking at this.
Lean into the secret.
Yeah,
Like, what is your secret
Hell
power,
yeah.
yeah,
right? It
totally.
is
It's a
this,
whole
like
other
leaning
approach.
into the secret.
Yeah, because otherwise, what is
Yeah.
their insight? What is their strategy? Who is their audience? It's so unclear. It's playing into this space of what was just the old way of doing things without, it seems like, having a guiding light
Hmm.
of any sort of direction.
Absolutely.
Because I don't feel like they'd be
Yeah.
marketing to me now. I'm not interested in that. I want
No.
comfort. I'm on the comfort bandwagon.
I think it's also like, Kim Kardashian is wearing Skims without knowing that without her saying she's wearing
Right.
Mhm.
Skims, right? It's just like this kind
Yeah.
of institutional kind of conversation. I think, Alana, to your point, yeah, you could have highlighted it as like, my secret power is
Yes.
Victoria's Secret. Like, imagine that
Oh,
Yeah.
campaign with, such a opportunity to kind of like flip the script a little bit more
Mhm.
and lean into that. And I think there just wasn't enough breathing room to get really creative with the pivot. And I think so many brands get scared when when audiences don't
yeah.
automatically come on
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you have to double down
100%.
if you really believe in
Entirely.
it.
Yep.
You have to keep going because they'll eventually get
Give
there
us
and
review.
just,
Well, especially if you're trying to
yes,
reach
a
a
hundred
different
percent,
audience.
Right.
Because if you're
a
changing your
hundred
brand,
percent.
then you're probably trying to reach somebody else. So you need to give them time to know that you exist and you have a new approach.
Yeah.
And that you're committed to the new approach,
Exactly.
right? Like, 3 years is only 6 cycles. You know what I mean? It's just not enough cycles
Yep.
to really say that. And because it takes so long to even institutionalize the
Hmm.
pivot,
Mhm.
right? So by 3 years, you're really institutionalizing the pivot. You're getting people on board, and then
Yeah.
you change back. So then people feel like, oh, well, I don't want to invest any more money. I don't want to invest any more time into thinking about
Right.
you,
Yeah.
because you're just going to pivot again when you need more money
Yep.
or something like that. You need to sell me more things.
Yep.
So, yeah, a lot of missed opportunities here.
Yeah. And then there's the part where there's the whole
Yeah.
quality side of it that's also
Ah,
but I
I mean,
think
I didn't want to say it, but I think people are way more
savvy to all of that now.
conscious of what, yeah, and way more conscious of where they're putting
yeah.
their money,
What's your material
what they're putting on their body, what
sustainability
your
of your
material
product,
is,
Right.
sustainability of your
which there's
products.
nothing on their website
Totally.
about sustainability of anything.
Totally. So I think there's just so much more to
Mhm.
explore. Victoria's Secret, if you're out there, call all three of us. We'll be happy to start you through that. Limited brands. I think they're still with limited,
Yes.
but I think there's just so much to explore there
Yeah.
that actually would speak to the consumer and the new consumer that's emerging, rather than just,
Right.
you know, I don't think femininity goes away. I'm not even suggesting
No.
that, or like sexiness goes away. It's more of, how do you expand to show that sexiness is a lot of different things,
Mhm.
and femininity is a lot of different things,
Mhm.
and power is a lot of different
Yes.
things, that isn't just this, like, I don't know. Old school is the only word that comes to mind, even as a communications person, but this kind of old
Yeah.
narrative that you've been leaning into for so
Yep.
long. The world has changed, and so how do you start to lean into the changing world? And that's not to abandon all those, I think every woman wants to feel sexy. I don't know a woman who doesn't,
Yeah.
or even a man, or even
Totally.
them. They, like, everybody wants to feel
Yeah.
confident and sexy in what they're
Yeah.
wearing.
But who's defining what sexy is
Right.
A
the big
hundred
question
percent.
mark.
100%.
And are you really tapping
And
into
I
the
think sexy feels different for everybody based on where you are, where you live, what your
Right.
income is like. So, if we're thinking about the money in the masses, how are you kind of generalizing sexiness in a way that actually makes people more invited and invested to define it on their own terms using
Mhm.
your products?
Yep.
You don't have to define it for them. They don't want to be spoon fed. They want to be able to use the product in a way that feels best to them. And how do you create an avenue for them to think through that or believe in that?
Yep. Yes. Yes, yes, and yes.
Well, and even their, the VS Collective, hearing Megan say herself, I don't find Victoria's Secret lingerie sexy. And why are you reaching out to me? And, just doomed from the start. And yet, she believed that there was potential for change, that she could be someone who could help shape and build this new brand. And I think that that's also why a lot of the other celebrities got involved, was to really be a way to be a part of something bigger, and to have that all just go out the window, and for them to say, no, just kidding, we're going to be unapologetically sexy again, goodbye.
Yeah. And it took like a year, 6 months to make this pivot back, right? So this conversation I've been having internally for a while before they're making this
It's
announcement.
bananas.
Yeah, so it's just so short-lived and has so much potential to,
Yeah.
I think to define what's your Victoria's Secret
Yeah.
way, and for having people to own that as a part of that conversation rather than you to tell me. I think the version of marketers and branding and narrative that tells you who to
Hmm.
be is the stuff that is not
Yeah.
working
Yep.
anymore.
Yeah.
It's just people want to feel they want to explore. They want to use the products to explore how to use it. They want to explore themselves. They
Yeah.
want to explore their identity. And they're recording all of that online,
Yes.
right? And
Hmm.
so I think the narrative that you can tell people what they are is just not going to work
Yeah.
in so many ways,
Yeah.
But if you allow them to use your product to explore who they
Right.
are,
Hmm.
then you have a conversation.
Yeah.
And they have a conversation with themselves. They have a conversation with others,
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh
Yeah.
man,
So
it just
many missed
lends
opportunities.
lends itself
So many. I know. Just hire us. We're ready.
lends itself to such a good UGC campaign too. Oh,
Oh my God, there's so many legs.
There's
so
There's so
many.
many, not to, pun
yeah.
intended. There's so many legs.
So many legs. No more
So
wings,
many,
but all
so
of
many
those
legs
legs.
to go in. No more wings. Yeah, we're all walking.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna need a part 2 of this to see what happens after the launch of this fashion
Right?
show. But
Yeah, I know. What is it? The 14th? It's coming
Yeah.
yeah,
up,
only a
right?
couple weeks away.
Tuesday, October 14th, I
We
think.
will definitely put something
Interesting.
on our Substack for
Maybe that'll
sure.
be our
I
Substack.
definitely
Yeah,
won't be
Yeah.
watching. Yeah, right. I won't be watching live, but I will.
can't contribute to those numbers. God no.
Hell no.
Just the highlights. Just the highlights.
Well, no one watches live. That's the
Right.
thing. If you go off of
Also
live
true.
numbers, it's just not real.
Well, and also
Like
just because someone watches a
live
fashion
numbers are
show
not
doesn't
real.
mean they're actually going to purchase anything. The fashion show before was probably
I want
just
to know the
watched by
demographic
men.
of who watching the
Yeah,
fashion
the
show.
same people who
That's what
watch Miss America. Like,
like
no, that's not the point.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's just like, oh, okay, cool. We're trying to go back into the male gaze of things instead of just empowering women to make their own
Yeah.
choices. Cool,
Yeah,
cool, cool, cool.
yeah. No thanks.
Yeah,
Yikes.
yeah, not yeah.
On that note, thank you so much.
On that note.
I know, no more male gaze. Sorry.
I mean, I love my husband. So
Yeah, like privacy in the private space.
yeah, privacy. Yeah, I want my Victoria's Secret
Yeah.
secret.
Keep it a
That even in
secret.
and of itself is like kind of funny. Okay.
Yeah.
But really though, thank you, Michelle, so much for joining us today. This was such a joy.
Mhm.
Where can we send folks to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, if anybody wants to get in touch with us, please visit teamfriday.la. We'd love to hear from you. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on the socials. Feel free to reach out. My email is never hard to find. So
And we'll include it in the show notes. That'll be extra easy to link. There's
awesome.
you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you
Awesome.
so much, Michelle, for joining us and for helping us shine a light and learn from those who are doing it well and reducing the missed opportunities for good.
We want to hear from you. Please let us know, what campaigns are you seeing that are doing it well or not? Who would you like to see us interview, and what campaigns do you like us to audit?
Thank you to our listeners for joining us on our mission to revolutionize the industry that we love. And please, 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 if you haven't already, please follow along on Substack, where we go in depth into our episodes and into more insights.
And get part 2 of Missed Opportunities for Good is a production of Aligned for Impact and Love of Good.